Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So just one topic in this video, and that is that we seem to have a bit of an update on Beasts of the Four Nations. Now, for anyone who's forgot about what this book actually is, this is the 6th deluxe edition that is meant to go with your collection of 2nd edition, deluxe edition art books, the 1 Avatar art book and the 4 Korra art books. This is the 6th deluxe set that will complete the spine image across all of these deluxe sets. And so, yeah, the deluxe set listings went up, as well as listings for the actual book. But when those listings went up, our first time learning about this book, it was followed up by just a bunch of quick release date changes, the book being indefinitely postponed at some point, then certain websites taking it down, others keeping it up, again more release date changes, and all along the way, nothing ever being said about it by Dark Horse at any point in the process. So we've just been going completely no information on this book for quite a while. So going back to the video where I actually covered the initial reveal. This was from, May 24th, 2021. So we're talking over a year and a half ago when we actually first heard about this book. And you can see on screen here, it was meant to be out October 2021. So we're over a year past the initial planned release date of this book. And in all of the time that it's been out, we've not heard a single thing that isn't mentioned on the 2 initial pages. And part of what prompted this video was that the reason I'm using Previews World here is because, hey, those listings for the deluxe edition and the normal edition aren't up anymore. I have the code completely right because I've saved those links basically. So both of them that end in 359 and 360, item not found. What's going on here? And I posted about this on Twitter, and this is where the news comes from. So I just posted Beasts of the Four Nations Previews World listings have been taken down. Is this book actually going to happen? And both of these, again, link to these 2 pages that aren't up anymore. Then Wisteria Art posted on Twitter and mentioned this. This is what the comic book store I pre-ordered it from said in an email when they issued me a refund. So this is the most information we've had on this book since May 2021. Unfortunately, we're sorry to report that the distributor has notified us that Beast of the Four Nations Creatures from Avatar Deluxe hardcover with the 360 SKU you ordered has been cancelled by the publisher Dark Horse Comics. So there's your sort of headline here, is that if this is completely correct, that means the reason these listings aren't up anymore is because, at least in this iteration of the book, or this plan for the release of this book, they've decided that, I guess it's gone so far off the tracks, they've maybe altered stuff a little bit, that they've cancelled, at the very least, this attempt. And they do say the publisher has stated that they will re-offer the title at a later date. No additional information was provided to us by the distributor or the publisher as to why this occurred. Sadly, this means we will not be able to ship you the book, of course. So, interesting thing there that Dark Horse couldn't come out and say this themselves to all the people who already have the first 5 deluxe books that cost quite a bit of money and are just waiting to complete their collection. Dark Horse couldn't just say that hey, we made a bit of a mistake, we announced this book right as the big change happened, sorry, Why couldn't this have just been said directly to us as an announcement? Why did this have to come over a year and a half later, and in just from basically one comic book store that I guess tries to give more of a reason for why things get cancelled? But it says it quite clearly here that this book you ordered has been cancelled by the publisher Dark Horse. There's no real getting around that this is some weird technicality or something like that. That's pretty clear, combined with this, that this book has been basically cancelled, at least temporarily. They said they'll launch the book at some point, but it means, I guess, it is going to have a different listing, because you can see it says like June. It was like a June solicitation, basically. So the idea with this, I guess, is that it will get a new solicitation when they're finally actually ready to talk about it. But the big question is obviously going to be, what happened with this book? Why has there been such a delay with this book? I think you have to bring in the whole idea of like, okay, this is the last of all of the deluxe sets, but they obviously had to have planned what all the deluxe sets were right at the start. Meaning you have to go back to basically the release schedule window when this stuff was announced, which was actually back in 2020. Because it was like November, I think, when the ATLA Deluxe Art Book came out, the second edition came out. That was the first of them. And as you'll note there, November 2020 is before February 2021, which is when Avatar Studios was actually announced and revealed to us. Now, realistically, it was probably organized a little bit more in the background for a bit before that. And the fact that like other books kind of happened the way they happened, basically the shift of Avatar comics from being comic trilogies to being the one-shots had happened beforehand. It seems like what's happened here, and across the board with Dark Horse, is that when Avatar Studios was planned to form, and at least ahead of it, Dark Horse had to change their plans a lot with what seems like nearly everything they were working on, except basic reprints of other books. So I think that's why we for the most part haven't seen any issue with the first deluxe sets, but this book, which is completely new, has had problems. Now, I don't really understand why that is the case in terms of like, if this book was planned to happen before Avatar Studios and is still planned to happen post Avatar Studios, what's the difference basically? Because either way, you are still basically getting help on this book from the people who work on Avatar. I get it, like Avatar Studios means the Avatar side of things behind the scenes is more organized now. But from what you can tell, if you look at recent Avatar books that have come out from Dark Horse, they still have the thank yous to effectively the same people as they did before. It just now says from Avatar Studios instead of these people from Viacom, Paramount, Nickelodeon. So what exactly has happened here? Does this mean the book that we're actually going to get is better than it would have been before, or more limited than it would have been before? Because so far, I think the effects of Avatar Studios we felt on publishing, for the most part, especially with Dark Horse, have been, well, we have to only do one-shots now, and it seems like the Azula comic is this new attempt next year at doing a more important one-shot comic. Otherwise, both Avatar and Korra have switched away from full-on trilogies to being one-shots, based on what we know. And then this book, which is obviously going to have, I guess, some new information. It probably has to be new information on some of these animals to fill out like the 200 plus pages that this book is meant to be. What's going on here? Like, is it some sort of a situation with the artists maybe that they had planned that like they now want to use more of their like in-house Avatar Studios artists to work on this compared to maybe what they had before? I don't really know, like, at all. But it's good to, I suppose, know that it's not fully cancelled. But obviously it's not a good situation to be in where right now this book doesn't actually have a release date. That there is no suggestion at all for when this book actually will come out. Now, I want to believe that it's not going to take an incredible amount of time before they kind of re-announce it again. Because I do think 2023 could use a book like this coming out, just to kind of add to what Dark Horse can put out. But is it going to actually come out next year? Because like they obviously have the Azula comics planned for summer next year. We don't even know what exact month that means. There is the Mako one-shot comic, which doesn't really have a date, but they're more saying late 2023. There's the Korra, the Republic City extra thing with the Legends RPG, which is meant for summer as well. There's the free comic, which is basically the very start of summer, free comic book day. The Chibi comic right at the start of the year, but no one really cares about that. So there is this pretty big gap right at the start of the year. But it seems like if the book is going to get re-announced at some point, there's no way it's going to be for a release date that early in the year, because already, if a new book was to get announced, the earliest I think we would see that book get announced for is probably June, July, August next year. So I don't really know what to make of that. Will they have this book for the end of next year? Because we have to assume that, like, well, if at some point in the process this was scheduled and might have been possible to hit October 2021, we have to assume that quite a bit of art was done for this. If at least the cover was done, you assume that at least some other stuff was also done for this. So has that been scrapped? Are we starting again here? I don't even know, because we don't exactly know what the layout of this book is going to be. We assume it'll be some sort of a thing where, like, one side of the page will probably have 1-2 images of the specific animal. The other page will mainly be like text and details about it. I don't really know if that's the way they'll do it, but that seems a reasonable way to do it. But who knows what the actual plan is. The point remains is that this is a book a lot of people have been excited for. We've definitely needed something like this to just fully expand out on all of the animals and just have a really nice, easy to reference book to find out stuff on the animals, because it can be a little bit tricky, you know, otherwise trying to find out stuff, especially about obscure animals, and you're hunting through episodes or the Avatar wiki page on this sort of stuff. It'd be nice to just have sort of this book to go to that has concrete information on all of those animals, even the more obscure ones. So it is a book that I think everyone still wants. It's just, come on, Dark Horse, like, actually release this. But again, this is where I'd be hesitant to go full on in on Dark Horse, in that, again, I think if you ignore the Avatar Studios impact, you're not telling the full, like, truth of what is actually happening here, in that Avatar Studios has clearly led to much of the delays that we've experienced over the last few years, mainly when it comes to sort of like that communication style of things. That's why we're not probably hearing about stuff so much. Sure, delays are more due to shipping and so on, but you know, a book like this, it is not good that, okay, even if there's not a lot you have to say about it, I think Dark Horse still should have effectively put this out there. Like, if you can say that effectively to the distributor, who in turn can say this to the comic book store, why can't anyone in that chain come out and say that to fans specifically? I just feel like this is where, I get it's sort of tricky for Dark Horse in that they have all of these licenses and publishers, and it'd be a kind of odd announcement to make in the middle of everything to just say, hey, look what's happening with this book. But this is probably where Avatar Studios needs to have their own social media channels and be like, we can explain what's happened with this book, because effectively it's because of us that it's happened. I'd like to just see something like that happen. So yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say here. You know, everyone I think still remains excited for this book, but it is not good that we're in a situation where we don't really know what's happening. But at least we sort of have more of an idea now. Okay, it got cancelled at some point, and that seems to have only been confirmed in relatively recent times for specific stores and stuff like that. I think a lot of people have just been waiting, and that's why I think you still see listings up for this everywhere. It hasn't quite reached this stage where every single place listing this book is aware that it's been cancelled just yet. So yeah, we're just waiting, I suppose, for this book to basically get re-announced, or technically announced properly this time. That's weird, because the problem is, I suppose, is that unless they go all out with the announcement, is the announcement not just going to literally be what we had before? You know, I wouldn't really expect a new cover or anything like that. Honestly, they probably have to do the announcement with preview pages. It's probably the only way they can do it properly. But also, just before the end of the video, just quickly to add that in case you aren't aware, every year at the end of the year, I always do 3 videos on my channel to sort of end the year in Avatar. They will be starting this week. So on Wednesday, the 21st, I will be releasing my top 5 Avatar and Korra story moments video, where I go over all the story content that came out this year and pick my top moments. Then later on this week, more towards the end of the week, I will be releasing my 2022 Avatar Year in Review, where I go over everything that happened this year in Avatar. The story content again, all the big news, merchandise that came out, and try and come up with a conclusion of, was the year good, was it bad, or was it somewhere in the middle? And then right at the end of the year, usually December 31st, I will release my 2023 Avatar preview for what story content we know about going into next year, as well as like merchandise and stuff like that. What we expect from 2023 for Avatar. Anyway, so in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on what's happening with this book. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.